This video is sponsored by World Anvil.
What have we done?
Oh, misty eye of the mountain below.
When the credits rolled on the second Hobbit movie and the theater lights came up, I looked around at my friends and said, "Wow, that was great!" Wait, no, it wasn't. It was actually really bad, but this was great. This was an awesome ending. Well, no, the dialogue scene with Smaug was great, but then it was followed by almost 30 minutes of less than stellar action, intercut with some really weak romance scenes. So, what's working on me right now? How did the movie momentarily trick me into thinking I had a good time? Is it just this song? I think it's just this song. Everyone else had left the theater by the time I finished that thought, but that was how I was first exposed to the music of Ed Sheeran. A couple of years later, his second album came out, and that's around the time when I got really into his work. I think he's probably my favorite currently performing solo artist. I don't love all of his stuff. He's definitely got some songs that have just left me shrugging and going, that one wasn't really my thing. But the songs of his I really like. And he's also written some songs that we don't typically associate with him. Fun fact, earlier this month, this is just coincidental, but somebody commented on one of my old Critical Role Demystified videos, asking about what song Scanlan was parodying with one of his bardic inspirations, and I replied that it was Love Yourself by Justin Bieber, but I forgot that that song was actually written by Ed Sheeran. But this isn't just a video about how much I like Ed Sheeran, because this is a channel where I mainly talk about D&D and I offer advice to game masters who want to level up their skill set. And so I want to share an insight I had a few years ago. I think Ed Sheeran would make a really great game master, because Ed has two extremely valuable skills that I think we could all stand to learn from. First of all, he doesn't try to be the jack of all trades. He started by focusing on just mastering one tool. And second, Ed Sheeran is excellent at pulling his audience into his performances and commanding their attention. We're going to look at both of those skills today, and hopefully these examples will help to inspire you to bring some of these same approaches to your own games. Before we get started, look, I know this video is going to be a copyright minefield. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to play the clips I want to play and still monetize this video. I actually used an Ed Sheeran song in a video on my Downtime channel. It was a tribute to my grandparents when they passed away, and the copyright notice said that the song was copyrighted, but that the copyright holder allowed the song to be used on YouTube. And that is incredibly kind of Ed and his team to allow the song to be used that way, especially for a song about grief, which I assume he knows is going to be popping up in a lot of similar videos. But my Downtime channel isn't monetized yet, so it might not work the same way as the copyright approval for this channel. And also, while this video will use some Ed Sheeran music, hopefully, the songs were performed at concerts, which were uploaded to YouTube in videos that Ed doesn't own, so they might have different copyright policies than he does. Also, there's a whole section of this video where we're going to analyze a song that's all about drug use, so that should be fun for YouTube to figure out if I'm allowed to earn revenue off of that or not. So if you like this video and you want to support me taking the occasional huge swing with my content, then please consider joining my Patreon. This video was actually part of a poll where my viewers got to help choose which videos I made. I'm going to post another poll very soon, so if you want to vote on future videos, then check out the Patreon. Now, when I first checked out Ed's music, I think the second clip I ever saw was from something called the One Take EP, where he recorded a few songs live in the studio all in one take. And we watched him actually build a soundtrack, gradually adding in different sound elements that would repeat throughout the song. And he did this with the help of a simple tool, a loop pedal. With this tool, he can harmonize with himself and create his own backing track, be his own background singers, have his own accompanying guitar. He's functionally a one-man band, which was a valuable skill for him to have considering he started his career as a solo act, busking on street corners or running around and visiting as many clubs and bars in a night as he could. It freed him up to create more complex musical performances rather than just being a very talented songwriter with an acoustic guitar. This is the tool that he mastered. And yeah, he's good at other stuff too. He's good at playing the guitar, he's great at singing, he's an exceptional songwriter.
Melody music maker, reading all the papers, they say I'm up and coming like I'm fucking in an elevator.
But what makes him so good at performing live is that he has mastered the use of the loop pedal. On his first studio album, a lot of his songs had the traditional studio experience. You Need Me, I Don't Need You has a drum kit, it's polished, there's really dynamic transitions as voice and instruments come in and out of the song.
I'm real, I do it all, it's all me. I'm not fake, don't ever call me Daisy. I won't stay put, give me the chance to be free. Suffolk sadly seems to sort of suffocate me.
But I just don't think it comes anywhere close to capturing the energy of the version he performs with the loop pedal. I think it's especially fitting for a song that has the lyric, "I do it all, it's all me." The better version of the song is the one that feels scrappy and independent, like he's literally performing it in the London Underground with his guitar case open in front of him. With the loop pedal, he can still control when the background music comes in and out, but there's something far more effective about that when you can tell it's one person clicking it on and off with his foot, precisely timing it so the music comes in right on the downbeat.
See, I'm real, I do it all, it's all me. I'm not fake, don't ever call me lazy. I won't stay put, give me the chance to be free. Suffolk sadly seems to sort of suffocate me. Hey!
This is actually one of the lessons I think a lot of us can learn. A huge part of mastering any tool isn't just about learning when to use it, but when not to use it. And we can absolutely see that in action with our next song, because I actually think the perfect example of how the loop pedal enhances his songs comes when we take a look at two versions of the song Bloodstream, again from his album Multiply. See, Bloodstream is a song about drugs, and the main hook goes, "Tell me when it kicks in." So within the song itself, someone is describing the effects of drugs on his body, but he's also asking the people around him if it's actually started, saying, "Tell me when it kicks in." And in the studio version, we have the background music with the guitar and some sort of drum machine, plus someone's playing a shaker. And here's the studio version.
So tell me when it kicks in.
And here is the version he performed at the BBMAs.
Tell me when it kicks in.
By losing the background track in favor of the loop pedal version, we don't have the drums anymore, and so the guitar playing has to have more energy behind it because it has to make up for the absence of the percussion. And that's to say nothing of the energy he's getting from the crowd, which is feeding into his performance, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And so now we have a performance with a bit more energy behind it, which actually changes the connotations of the song itself, because while the studio version might feel like a more mellow trip, a live album captures a more frenetic energy. And Ed doubles down on that energy when he gets to the bridge, which also gives us another perfect example of how effectively he can use the loop pedal to set the tone. See, the bridge for Bloodstream is just one line repeated over and over. All the voices in my mind calling out across the line. And as the bridge continues, the music builds.
All the voices in my mind calling out across the line. All the voices in my mind calling out across the line.
And as the bridge continues, the lyrics devolve into a blend of the bridge and the chorus. Tell me when it kicks in, all the voices in my mind calling out across the line, all the voices in my mind calling out across the line, tell me when it kicks in, and so on. Then, now we have a whole production of instruments at play. When we get to the end of the bridge, those instruments all drop out at once.
Tell me when it kicks in. Broken hearted. So tell me when it kicks in.
I think it's meant to convey the idea that the high is building, and things are getting more and more intense, and then we get a crash. But the singer doesn't even know whether or not the drugs have kicked in or not. He spent his entire high asking whether or not he was high. But at the BBMAs, the bridge builds and builds thanks to the loop pedal. It starts very much the same way. Ed just builds the background track for the bridge, and then he performs over it. But then once we get the bridge and the chorus lyrics overlapping, he starts adding more and more to the background track. He just keeps playing and singing, and the background keeps building, and the bridge never lets up at all. And then, he just abandons any concerns about playing nice, and goes hog wild. And this makes the bridge feel so much more frantic and wild, which means once the music drops off, it feels so much more jarring and shocking. That's so scars upon. Tell me when it kicks in. Broken hearted.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.
That's the sort of experience that I think you could only really achieve by using the loop pedal. Even if Ed had a full band on stage with him, sure, he could have had them all play frantically and then cut off the music at the exact same time, and maybe they all would have actually hit the exact same moment if they had really practiced this song and had it deep in their bones. But they wouldn't be able to add any additional layers of music beyond what they're able to perform with their own instruments. You wouldn't be able to keep bringing in more and more instruments to add to the track because you're limited by the number of performers on stage or in the studio. The only way to get that effect would be to have the massive band that wasn't even playing for most of the song and then chimes in for the bridge. But then seeing them on stage at a live show would pretty much give away that you're going to hear them later in the track. With the loop pedal, he can add more and more chaotic elements into the same song, and then have them all drop out at the exact same moment. And even the process of adding them into the track itself is extremely compelling, because we're wondering just how many tracks he's going to add, and every time he adds a new one, it continues to add to the mounting tension of the song. But that actually does bring me to one of the downsides of the loop pedal. Building a background track demands a long lead up. You can't just toss on a pre-recorded track, you have to build it right there in front of the audience. But here's the thing. Any tool, any instrument, any resource can be undramatic if we watch how the sausage gets made. Actually, that's a bad example. Watching sausage get made is dramatic, that's famously why we don't want to do it. But it can be boring to sit and watch someone build the soundscape for a song. But I think this is the first step toward understanding how Ed is so good at commanding the attention of his audience. He knows that it can also be fun to watch him build a backing track. Yes, it obviously helps if it's a song people recognize, and it helps if they bought tickets to see a show, and it helps if you are an internationally famous singer-songwriter.
Oh, misty eye of the mountain below.
But we can go back to those one-take EP videos and see him doing the same thing for an audience of no one. There's no screaming crowd, he wasn't famous yet, nobody knew these songs. And we can see that it's actually just fun to watch him use the loop pedal to build his song. He can also use these sections of the song to put his audience in the right mood. For example, when he performs You Need Me, I Don't Need You in Dublin on his Multiply tour, it's an 11-minute experience. Partially because in the middle of the song, he usually performs a mashup with Red by Laid Black. He does that a lot. He does a lot of mashups with his songs when he's at live shows. But when he's done with that part, before he jumps back into his own song, he builds a new soundscape. And this allows the song to take a break in the middle so it's not constant energy the entire time. But it also allows Ed to build up the anticipation for the next big part of the song, gradually getting his audience more and more excited for him to basically drop the beat and jump into the next verse. But on the other hand, when he performs I See Fire live, he gets the big reaction for singing the intro, and then he uses the loop pedal section of the song, where he builds the whole track, to essentially bring his audience's energy level back down to something more appropriate. He doesn't need them screaming the entire time for this song, he wants them to just sit back and enjoy it. And taking this time at the top of the song helps shift the audience out of screaming mode and into listening mode. And if you notice, we've essentially segued into talking about how Ed interacts with his audience. Because the way he performs, and therefore the way that he connects to his crowds, all of that is shaped by the fact that he uses a loop pedal. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that using this tool made Ed Sheeran a better performer, because he had to get really good at reading the crowd and controlling the crowd and putting them in the right headspace where they can watch him noodle around with a guitar and a microphone for a minute or two before they song the note from the album technically starts in earnest, and they don't lose that same energy or momentum, unless Ed is specifically guiding them back down toward a more reserved mood. And all of that is only possible because he has completely mastered the loop pedal.
I forgot to press record, didn't I?
Hey, just because you're a master of your craft doesn't mean you can't occasionally make a mistake. The truth is, there is no Dungeon Master Assistance tool that is going to do all the work for you. But there are tools that you can use to enhance your games. And if you take the time to really master them, then you can begin to shape your prep around that tool and see how it benefits your games. For example, you could dive really deep into miniatures and become focused on tracking down minis that perfectly represent the monsters and NPCs the players interact with, get into painting them and so on. Or you can focus instead on maps and terrain, or voices and accents, or props and handouts. Or, let's be honest, for a lot of us, we dive deep into world building and prepping our campaigns and stories. But we've talked before on the channel about how that can be a really slippery slope. It's extremely tempting to get seduced by world building and feel like you're doing a lot more helpful prep than you actually are, because you might be creating details that your players will never interact with. But that's why it is so important to find the right tool for your prep, because it would be really nice if the tool you use for world building and campaign preparation didn't just give you a bunch of helpful features that allow you to build your world with ease, but they also prioritized the player's experience and how they're actually going to interact with your material. And that's why today's video is sponsored by World Anvil. World Anvil is an incredibly robust online toolkit that you can use to build articles for any aspect of your campaign setting. You can make different pages to talk about magic items or NPCs or monsters or ancient empires and other aspects of history. And you can also hide the details on your World Anvil articles, so when your players visit that page, they don't see all of your secrets, but you still can. So you can get all of your thoughts down in one centralized location rather than jotting down ideas for your campaign setting in notebooks or voice memos or emailing things to yourself, all things I have tried as methods to remember details from my world. But you can also share a version of that article with your players without them seeing all the details you've come up with when they haven't been revealed in the game itself so far. But this is what I mean when I say that using this tool also helps you consider how you're going to share lore with your players. Because the world building really doesn't matter unless it interacts with the campaign in some way. And so by giving you a way to share these articles with your players, but also hide details that only you can see, it gets you thinking about the way that your players will eventually uncover this information so you can actually share the full article with them, which means you are going to start looking for ways to tie your setting lore into the adventure. It literally helps to elevate your games by reminding you that their experience is just as important as yours. And I think that helps curb some of our bad habits as game masters. Not now, Ed. Also, the fine folks at World Anvil heard the pitch for this video and thought it sounded just insane enough to try, because they have been really supportive of this channel, including when I take really big swings that I have no idea how the audience or the algorithm is going to respond to. And so I just really appreciate them a lot for that. So let's thank them for their support of this channel by going and creating our own accounts. And if you visit worldanvil.com/supergeekmike and use the promo code supergeek at checkout, you could save 51% off of any annual membership. Once again, that's worldanvil.com/supergeekmike and use the promo code supergeek. Thank you so much to World Anvil for sponsoring this video. Now, Ed Sheeran didn't just become a great performer because he uses a loop pedal. He developed these skills through years of performing live, in front of often some probably pretty disinterested crowds. He would perform on street corners or in the London Underground, or in bars where people didn't necessarily come to hear him specifically. So he got really good at capturing the attention and focus of his audience. And often he does this by making them participants in his songs. A couple of years ago, I went to a concert and the opening act was trying to get the audience to engage a little bit. You know, your classic, put your hands in the air, wave them back and forth kind of thing. But something I noticed when I was watching was that the performer didn't really give the audience a clear idea for when to start or stop. He didn't really trigger them with a downbeat. No shame to that performer, I think he honestly did what a lot of performers would do. But also, on another song, he asked the audience to sing along with the chorus, but it was the last chorus of the song. They sang along once, and then it was over. Again, I bet you that is something that a lot of performing artists do. I would imagine I might even do the exact same thing if I was up on stage in front of thousands of people. But the reason these moments stood out to me is because I was already thinking about this video and how Ed Sheeran is really, really good at recruiting his audience to participate in his shows, and also gives them a lot more guidance for what he wants them to do.
Lower harmony, higher harmony. Whatever I teach you to sing, do not stop singing. Agreed? Say yeah! Alright, lower harmony, higher harmony.
I have to imagine this is a skill that he developed back when he was a completely unknown artist, performing in front of random people. And in fact, if you go back and you find old videos of Ed performing for people who don't know who he is yet, you can see that he's already using a lot of these same crowd work techniques.
Okay, so, you're quite a chilled out audience, but I want you to sing this line. You need me, man, I don't need you.
And one of the most perfect examples of seeing this in action came when he used to perform a cover of Nina Simone's Be My Husband. First of all, I want to give him a lot of credit for singing this song without a hint of irony or self-consciousness. He just really likes this song, so for a long time it was part of his set list.
Oh, daddy, now, love me good. Sing it out. Oh, daddy, now, love me good. Oh, daddy, now, love me good. Whoa, daddy, now, love me good.
But he also recruited his audience to sing the chorus with him. And you absolutely can't guarantee that everybody in the crowd is going to be as comfortable in their own masculinity as Ed Sheeran is in his. But Ed anticipated that problem, and so as part of his patter as he gives the audience their instructions, he absolves the gentleman in the audience of any reason to feel uncomfortable with singing these lyrics.
Now lads, gentlemen, fellas, men, if you feel awkward singing Oh Daddy, Daddy, Love Me Good, remember this is just a concert, and no one's going to judge you for singing this, but we will judge you if you don't sing it, so come on, everyone in the crowd, scream it out. Oh Daddy, now, love me good, scream it out!
He basically tells them, you came to this concert, so please play along. Nobody's going to judge you for letting go and just having fun. And this is something that I think more Dungeon Masters should say to their players, because new players can also feel really self-conscious whenever they get into the hobby for the first time. And I think a lot of us could borrow that same technique from Ed. No, we probably shouldn't say, we will judge you if you don't play along. I don't think peer pressure is as productive when you're sitting around a table with your friends. That's a much more vulnerable situation. But I think that it is important to make sure that your players don't feel self-conscious by just reminding them that none of you are at the table to judge each other. You are all just there to play a game and have fun. But the other thing that's really valuable about Ed's live performances is that he is really, really clear with his audience about what's expected from them. He will flat out tell them when he wants them to participate in one of his songs. Sometimes he'll just tell them, sing along.
At any point tonight, if you feel like you don't know the words to any of the songs, Just make it up. Sounds better that way.
Other times, he walks them through what's going to happen next and what their role is.
1, 2, everyone needs to clap on this. 5, 6, 7. Everyone put your hands in the air and clap for me. 4, 5, 6, 7. Now keep that clap going for as long as you can. Please sing in the chorus. This is a song called Be My Husband by Nina Simone. I hope you thoroughly enjoy it. Here we go.
Again, I think this is a huge lesson that a lot of Dungeon Masters could stand to learn from. I've run a lot of games for a lot of new players, so I used to be really good at guiding them through certain aspects of the game. But it's been a long time since I've done that, and now I'm running a game again for new players, but this time I'm doing so in a new edition of the game that I'm not as familiar with yet. So this is a skill that I'm really having to relearn. But I think a lot of game masters don't want to tell their players too much about what's going to happen next because they want their players to feel empowered to make decisions for themselves. But sometimes you do just need to intervene and explain to your players what is going to happen and what they are going to do or what you expect them to do so they can actually be more empowered to make decisions because they have a better sense of what's going on. Now, different players are going to need different sorts of coaching for different parts of the game, depending on how familiar they are with the rules. But there are a few aspects of the game that I think more players need more help with than other aspects. For example, rolling for initiative can be a little bit confusing, so giving your players a clearer expectation helps with that a lot. The same goes with death saving throws, and just generally with death mechanics in most RPGs. But this philosophy can also apply to things like the players choosing their adventures. If you're new to the channel, I make a lot of videos about Critical Role, a web series where we actually just watch people play D&D, and we'll definitely talk about this again when we get to future episodes of that series, but when they started their second campaign, the Dungeon Master didn't really seem to explain to the players that this campaign was going to be much more self-directed than the first one. So these players seemed, to me at least, to be spending a lot more time waiting for the campaign's adventures to actually begin, while the DM was waiting for the players to take the initiative and decide what they were going to do. For me, the most exciting moments of that campaign came when the players had a very clear idea of what they wanted to do next, or the moments when Matt put a really juicy plot hook in front of them that they could sink their teeth into. I think that campaign would have flowed a lot better if Matt had just fully explained to his players how the format of this campaign was going to work. For Ed Sheeran, being really clear with his audience allows him to put on some really terrific live shows, because he's already coaxed his audience into filling whatever role is needed for that individual song. In the case of something like Be My Husband, it's to clap along and sing to the chorus. But for other songs, Ed will specifically tell his audience that he doesn't want them to sing along. Sometimes he just wants them to sit back and listen. And this brings me to the last skill that I want to talk about today. Ed Sheeran has a really precise control over his audience, and he's really clever about knowing when he wants to use silence. Sometimes it's for specific songs that he just wants them to be quiet audience members for. He'll actually tell the audience to say shush all at once because he just wants them to listen rather than sing along.
This one's quite... Who's been to a gig before? So you know that universal shush thing is basically a 3-step thing. You send round one universal shh, and then the second step is I tell you a story, but everyone's heard the story, so it doesn't matter. Third step is we send around the shush again, and if anyone next to you makes noise, just tap them on the shoulder and say, shut the fuck up. And it'll work.
And sometimes that's all he does. But there are other times where he really takes advantage of the silence of the crowd. For a perfect example, we can go back to that live show in Dublin and the way he performs the Irish folk song, The Parting Glass. He starts by doing the same thing, asking his audience to just stay quiet for this song.
The way this song is going to work is if we are all very, very, very quiet. You can do that, shush.
Then he performs, and there's no loop pedal, it's not flashy in any way, it's just a man with an acoustic guitar playing in front of a crowd that is watching in rapt attention.
And of all the money that I had, I spent it in good company.
But the most incredible moment of this performance is when he essentially rewards them for their silence, by giving them a more intimate moment that he could not do if they were singing along or clapping or anything like that. He abandons the microphone entirely and just sings out the final verse to the crowd, and because they followed his instructions and just listened, they can all hear him.
The man may drink and not be drunk. A man may fight and not be slain. A man may court a pretty girl and perhaps be welcome back again.
This is what I mean when I say that Ed Sheeran is incredible at performing in front of an audience. He's not just good at the big bombastic moments with his long songs that build and rise and fall and rise again, and working moments where the audience can sing along or clap in time with the beats and feel like they're part of the performance. It's also moments like this where he can actually command the attention of the room without his loop pedal and without his instruments and without his microphone. This is why I genuinely believe that Ed Sheeran would be a great dungeon master, because he can put the time in to learn how to use these fancy tools to enhance his performance, and you can use all the tools you want to enhance your games, like maps and miniatures and handouts and digital tool sets that allow you to create wiki-style articles, worldlevel.com/supergeekmike. But sometimes the most powerful moments at our D&D tables don't have anything to do with all the tools that we've mastered. Sometimes it's just about us speaking clearly to our players, and the magic that happens when we connect with each other. Of course, the magic of a D&D game isn't quite the same as the magic of a live concert, and I wanted to experience some of that magic for myself. So in late 2023, my wife and I went to go see Ed Sheeran live in concert as part of the Mathematics Tour, celebrating all of his albums up to that point, kind of like his own version of the Eras Tour. And I'll be honest, I already knew I was planning to make this video at the time, so one of the things I was really excited for was actually getting to see Ed use the loop pedal in action. I was looking forward to seeing one man use a guitar, and sometimes a keyboard, to build an entire soundscape for each of his songs. But then he took the stage, and I heard something that surprised me. A drum kit. Now, do not get me wrong, most of the concert was still just Ed and a loop pedal. I still absolutely got my wish. But for a couple of songs, Ed had some other musicians able to provide live accompaniment, which obviously makes sense. Not just because this concert was covering music from 6 albums, and so he didn't have time to build loop tracks on stage for every song, but also because having a live band allows you to just broaden the kind of show you can do. You can take a song like End of Youth, which is probably my favorite track from Subtract, which is also my favorite Ed Sheeran album, and having a live band allows you to do a new version of that song where it's more of a rock song. And in a way, this was also kind of inspiring for me, because I hope I've made the case in this video that Ed Sheeran has mastered the use of the loop pedal. But he also didn't feel like he was limited to just using that one tool indefinitely, and never mixing things up. Even though I think part of what makes his live shows so compelling is the loop pedal and the fact that he's doing everything on his own, he understood better than I did that if you stick to that approach and turn it into part of your brand, then it just becomes a gimmick. You have to be willing to leave your comfort zone if it's going to help the song. So now, in addition to Ed Sheeran mastering the loop pedal, he also sometimes plays with a full band for a couple of songs. He also has a whole bunch of other graphics that play on the screen behind him with lyrics or full-on animations that are specific to each song. And of course, all these options are available to him because he's an incredibly rich and famous musician. He's not running a D&D game, he doesn't have to sit down and draw those graphics himself. Other people will do that for him. But I still think it's useful to see how we ourselves can also keep evolving, even after we feel like we've mastered some part of our own games. In my games, I feel like I have a really good handle on plot, on NPCs, and on villains. But now what I'm working on is evolving my maps, and I'm also sort of keeping an eye on upping my miniatures game as well, although I'm not about to start painting minis anytime soon. I don't have the time or space to add that hobby to my life. But I am starting to think a lot more about the presentation at the table, in ways I haven't really done since before the pandemic. And if you remember the lessons of Ed Sheeran, we can see how once you've mastered one aspect of your trade, you can slowly start adding others in as well, and experimenting with other ways to level up your own games. And don't worry, I still got to see Bloodstream live with the full loop pedal effect, so I was very happy. Of course, the truth is that I am completely biased in this discussion. Ed Sheeran is also an artist who means a whole lot to me. It's not lost on me that some people definitely have, I would imagine, much more mixed feelings about him.
Love your work, man.
Thank you.
Especially the rapping.
Really?
No, only kidding. Nah, leave it to the brothers. That'd be my advice. Gingers and rap. Sounds a bit crap.
But I've honestly always been a fan. On my first date with the woman who is now my wife, when the two of us got in the car together, Ed Sheeran was the artist who was playing on the radio, and we connected over his music. When we got married, our first dance song was Best Part of Me. He's been there for a bunch of major milestones in my life. Even when my grandma and grandpa both died in January 2024, I used an Ed Sheeran song to basically process my feelings. And way back in 2022, when we first bought tickets for the Mathematics Tour, we had no idea that by the time we got to the concert a year later, my wife would be pregnant with our first child. And so, weirdly, we celebrated yet another milestone with the music of Ed Sheeran. And so while it is a little bit surprising to hear a live drum kit playing alongside Ed at a concert, it didn't come anywhere close to the wave of emotions I got a moment later when the first words he sang at the concert were, "I have grown up, I am a father now." And I imagine you might be expecting me to cut to a clip of that, since I've been using clips for so much of the rest of this video. But that moment The moment where Ed sang the exact words I needed to hear in September 2023, just a few months before my own son was born?
No. No, that one I saved just for me.
Thank you so much for watching. Like I mentioned earlier, this video is going to be a copyright clusterfuck. And it's also extremely different from most of the content I make, so there's a chance it won't do well at all, which will upset the algorithm. And by that, of course, I mean it will upset Oddwick, the algorithm wizard. I like when Mike makes videos that are a lot more like other videos he's already made before, and I don't tend to like big swings. Yep, checks out. So if you want to support the channel and help me feel occasionally empowered to maybe make really weird videos from time to time, then consider supporting me on Patreon. Or if a monthly membership isn't really in the cards for you right now, that's cool too. You could, if you're interested, make a one-time payment on Ko-fi. Believe me, every little bit helps, especially because this is my full-time job, and I haven't really put out a ton of videos in the last couple months due to various life circumstances, so any support you can give really is a huge help. But honestly, even if you can't support me financially right now, that's okay. You can just share this video with a friend. Help spread the word. Like I said, I don't really know if YouTube's going to show this video to a lot of people. I don't know what it's going to do with it. It might not pop up on a lot of people's feeds. But if you can share it around and get people watching it, that would honestly help a tremendous amount. And of course, leave a comment and let me know what is your favorite Ed Sheeran song. As much as I love End of Youth and a lot of other songs on Subtract, and I clearly love Bloodstream as a live performance, Best Part of Me does have a really special place in my heart. That song really speaks to me. It might be my favorite. I'm not sure.
Editing Mike here. It's Nancy Mulligan. I have no idea how that slipped my mind when I was working on the script. There's some other good ones too. Tenerife Sea is great, but it's Nancy Mulligan. It's not even close.
But you might feel totally differently, and that's really exciting. Ed Sheeran's also promoting another album right now, and I've been really enjoying the songs he's been putting out. And you know what? So is my kid. So I'm gonna let Ed Sheeran and Super Geek Tyke play us out today. Until next time, play fair and have fun.